Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today on this Monday brought to you by our friends at Passant Motors. May Day. It's May Days at Passant Motors. Huge promotions. Greatest selection. Marty Biron standing by. By the way, brought to you by Passant. Check out why Passant Motors is consistently the #1 rated dealer in the Lower Mainland. They've got some jobs available washing cars, Rick. You may want to look into that. Visit them online at passantmotors.com. Leafs and Oilers are out here to talk about the National Hockey League playoffs and Game 7 tonight. We haven't talked a lot about that. Seattle at Dallas. NHL analyst from TSN, former NHL goaltender, Marty Biron. Marty, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good. Very well. Aiden Hill, as we focus on goaltending, if you don't mind, what do you think? Because I think the Oilers might have thought the series is over. They've got this Aiden Hill. He's not a kid. He's 27. But what do you think the Knights have in Aiden Hill?
Well, first of all, he's a huge goalie, right? He's 6'6", I believe, and 230 pounds. He covers the net, but he moves well, and he knows his strengths and his weaknesses. Like, he's not going to be Andrei Vasilevsky or Igor Shesterkin in nets and do the splits, but he uses his body well. He gets in the way. Now, the Game 6 last night started. He was very shaky. The Connor McDavid goal was not a good one, but then he made a save about 5 minutes later on Klim Kostin. That was very similar than the McDavid one, right? He came down the right side, pulled up, and I love that goalies that make in-game adjustments. Like, he was on a better angle. He didn't overplay the short side, but he moved in with his body. Instead of just reacting with the blocker, he used his body. Right? You're a big guy. Make sure your body is following the puck. So he was really good this season. So they started the season with Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill. Laurent Brossoit was on the injured reserve. He was coming up of surgery in the offseason. So they believed that Aiden Hill was a good goaltender. He was going to be their backup. And when Logan Thompson went down with injuries, like, Aiden Hill played more. Then he got hurt, and then it became, Jonathan Quick and Laurent Brossoit and Yuri Patera. But look, Aiden Hill was a .915 save percentage this season, the regular season. That's 10 points better than the average in the NHL. So I think if the Oilers thought that Aiden Hill wasn't going to be able to do the job, they obviously were mistaken, because it's not like Laurent Brossoit is a household name, right? He was still getting the job done. So anybody in net for the Vegas Golden Knights right now is benefiting from a solid D-core and a great system in front of them.
Oilers, Marty, they pull Stuart Skinner, as we focus on goaltending again, in 3 of the last 4 games versus Vegas. What does that do to a young goalie's confidence, and is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, so it's not easy when you get pulled. But the thing with Stuart Skinner is his confidence, I believe, was shot from the beginning against LA. His body language, look, some people, get the rhythm of the playoffs a little quicker, a little better. Like Patrick Waugh in 1986, right? He's like, hey, I'm a young kid, let's go. And he always had that in him, right? And some people, it gets developed. And for Stuart Skinner, right from the first game, I thought, ooh, he looks a little shaky. Body language, not the same. And then Game 4 happened against the LA Kings, where they're down 3-0, and Jack Campbell comes in, and they end up winning the game in overtime. And I'm thinking, okay, there's an opportunity here for the Edmonton Oilers to say to Stuart Skinner, take a deep breath. We're a good team. We're going to go to Jack Campbell, and we're going to give you're going to come back in the playoffs at some point. There's going to be an opportunity for you, but take a deep breath. They didn't do it. They ended up winning Game 5 and 6 against the LA Kings, but it wasn't Stuart Skinner that we saw in the regular season. And I really love watching goaltenders, but not just how they make saves, but how they sometimes, get lucky making saves, how they give up goals, and just their body language throughout the game. And his was very, very shaky from the start of Game 1 against LA, and it was shaky against Vegas. And so you don't do it in the first round. That's okay. Jay Woodcroft, that's fine. But in the second round, there's definitely a time where they should have gone to Jack Campbell. Now, I will say this, and because I'm a goalie nerd and goalie geek and whatever it is, like Jack Campbell, I don't think made life easier on the Oilers either this year. He struggled through the season. He changed his equipment, was trying to find himself a rhythm and whatnot. And then, and some people may not even notice, like Jack Campbell changed gear in the middle of the second round. He had Bryans from head to toe, right? Vaughn earlier in the season, then Bryans. And all of a sudden he gets put into a game against the Vegas Golden Knights, and he's in full Bauer setup. Like, this is not something as a coach and as a goalie coach you'd say, oh, my guy is really confident. Look at him. He's changing his equipment. So I don't know if that played into the decision to say, oh, can we go to this guy here? Like, he comes on the ice every day with different gear. Is he game ready? But it had to play into it a little bit. So I'm not saying that this is all on Jack Campbell. I think it's on the coaching staff, and they should have gone to Jack Campbell at some point. But those are the things that behind closed door, there's conversation about everything.
Marty, I got to ask you about Sergei Bobrovsky, big contract. They were trying to move him the last couple of years. They didn't even start him in the playoffs. It was Alex Lyon. What are you seeing from him? I mean, he was so good against the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, listen, Bobrovsky is either hot or cold. He's been wildly inconsistent throughout his career and throughout the season this year with the Florida Panthers. And, you know, he came in, the Florida Panthers were down 2-1 in the series to Boston. He lost the first game, then won 6 in a row, 3 against Boston, 3 against Toronto. Like, he's athletic. He's very fast and very athletic. The biggest problem with Sergei Bobrovsky is giving up bad goals. He'll always make the super save, the game-saving saves, but then he'll, kind of follow it up with a bad goal. That's the problem with Sergei Bobrovsky. And if he doesn't give up bad goals, then he's the 2-time Vezina Trophy winning goaltender that he is. He's Vezina Bob. I say you either get Bob or you get Vezina Bob. And what the Boston Bruins and the Leafs saw was Vezina Bob.
Yeah.
Now, Carolina could easily see Bob, right? The thing with Bobrovsky, too, and this has been talked about, he wears down because he is an all-or-nothing guy. Like, even if he makes 50 saves in a game, and, goes through a second overtime, he'll be on the bike after the game. He'll be working out the next day. He'll stay extra on the ice the next morning at practice. Like, he just goes all out, so he wears down. 82 games is a long season, but somehow now he's in a rhythm, and everything seems to come up Vezina Bob for him.
Marty, Canadian markets. There's a lot of heat in Toronto and Edmonton. Both are out. Your thoughts? Are you thinking of tinkering there, or are major changes needed in your view?
Okay, well, the Oilers are gonna. I think they have 10 unrestricted free agent, maybe, or I mean, it's a lot, right? There's a lot of players that are gonna move, and so your goalie situation is one that you're going to have to figure out. Like, are you going with a 1A, 1B next year? Is it Skinner? Is it Campbell? You got to get Campbell back a chance to get into the rhythm. And you got McDavid and Draisaitl. Darnell Nurse did not impress me this season and in the playoffs, and he's a $9.25 million defenseman for a lot of years. Those 3 defensemen, right, that signed Seth Jones, Darnell Nurse, and was it Werenski, Zach Werenski with Columbus? Like that didn't really work out well. These 3 guys signing $9 million. But anyway, maybe there's a tinkering on the blue line. They got Matthias Ekholm. That's going to help. But the Oilers are the Oilers. They're going to have to keep going the way that they have, and they got the 2 best players in the world. Toronto is a different story, though. You got 4 guys that are your core 4. I think it's time to trade one, maybe even 2. I would trade one, and that would be Willie Nylander. He had a great season. He's a year away from unrestricted free agency. You got to trade him. You got to get, your best market value for William Nylander. And it has to happen now, I think, before the draft. The other thing that I would do, look, I think that Cal Dubas has done a good job. He tried this year. He went and got Ryan O'Reilly, and he went and got, Jake McCabe, and he went and got Luke Shannon. He tried, right? So I would give him at least another year. I would say, you want to come back for 1 year? You want to come back to see this through and see if you can make it happen another year? If not, if he wants a 3, 4, or 5 year deal, then it's different. But as deal expires, I would say, here's another year. Let's see where you can go. But you're going to have to break up the core 4. And I think Nylander's the guy. Matthews, you got to extend him if you can before the season starts, or he's walking away at some points during the regular season, and that wouldn't be good for Dubas and the Leafs. But the other thing is, what do you do with Sheldon Keefe, right? He's been Dubas's guy for back to Sault Ste. Marie and juniors. Like, it's his guy. And Sheldon Keefe's a good coach. He'll get a job anywhere he wants, but it may be time to try a different voice. It hasn't worked in the last few years here. Maybe time to try a different voice behind the bench.
And very quickly, 20 seconds or less, Marty, when it comes to the Leafs, what do you think they're thinking? What do you think their fans are thinking watching Freddie Anderson put up pretty good numbers with Carolina?
Well, Freddie Anderson is a really good goaltender, but the problem with Freddie is he got hurt. And he got hurt this year with Carolina again. Like, that's the thing, right? He gets hurt a lot, so can you trust that? Just like Matt Murray, can you trust that when he gets hurt all the time? So I think the Leafs are fine. They can look past Freddie Anderson because of the injury factor.
Beautiful. Well done. Short and sweet. Marty, love it. Thanks so much. We'll get you back on.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Marty
Marty.
Biron, TSN NHL analyst.